From the moment Ebony James entered Terminal 4 at John F. Kennedy International Airport, she sensed the intensity of 100 curious eyes following her every step. Dressed in a tailored midnight blue pantsuit, her afro styled into a towering halo, Ebony exuded a confidence that belied her nervous pulse. She had scraped together every cent to afford this flight for a once-in-a-lifetime audition. Yet she couldn't have predicted that a single dismissive comment from an airline agent would set off a chain of events so extraordinary she'd soon see her own face emblazoned across a private jet fleet. Fate was calling loudly. Ebony James was born and raised in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, a neighborhood known for its vibrant culture, deep artistic roots, and unbreakable community spirit. Growing up, she learned to hustle early. Her mother worked nights as a nurse at Woodhull Medical Center, and her father drove a delivery van for a small grocery supplier. Though money was tight, the James household brimmed with laughter, music, and endless creativity. Ebony's earliest memory was of running around the living room with a makeshift microphone, actually a hairbrush, while her mother clapped along and her father pretended to be paparazzi, snapping pictures. They were her biggest fans even before she had any idea what she wanted to be. She sang in church choirs and performed school plays, but her real passion ignited the day she flipped through a stack of old-fashioned magazines her aunt had left in the house. Ebony found herself entranced by the glamorous photo spreads, bright lights, swirling gowns, and models who looked like they walked on clouds. In those pages, Ebony found a world so different from her own, yet somehow it felt like home. By the time she reached high school, Ebony stood at nearly 6 feet tall, her lithe frame complemented by regal cheekbones and an effortless poise. Teachers whispered that she resembled the supermodels of the 1990s, Naomi Campbell, Tyra Banks, and Iman. Although she sometimes rolled her eyes at the comparisons, she couldn't deny the spark of excitement at the thought of following in their footsteps. She yearned for the runway, the camera flashes, and the adrenaline rush of stepping onto a catwalk to thunderous applause. But Ebony wasn't naive about the harshness of reality. She knew the fashion industry was cutthroat, and even more so for Black women, who often faced fewer opportunities and constant scrutiny over their hair complexion and body shape. Still, Ebony was determined. She sent her Polaroids to local agencies, practiced her catwalk in the narrow apartment corridor, and spent hours online studying runway shows from all over the world. One day, as she scrolled through Instagram, Ebony stumbled upon a casting call for a major modeling competition in Los Angeles. The winner would receive a lucrative contract, magazine covers, and an opportunity to walk in top fashion shows. It was the kind of break Ebony had dreamt of. Yet the sign-up fee and travel costs loomed like mountains in her path. Her mother, ever supportive, said, "If it's meant to be, we'll find a way." So they did. Ebony worked extra shifts at the neighborhood diner, picking up every available hour. Her father sold a few prized vinyl records from his jazz collection to help. Friends and neighbors chipped in, some offered small loans, others gave Ebony free hair and makeup practice sessions. They believed in her, and she felt the weight of their hopes more than the weight of her own ambition. By late spring, Ebony had raised just enough money to cover the flight and sign-up fee. It would be her first time on an airplane, and the idea thrilled her. She imagined drifting through clouds to a land of palm trees, neon lights, and endless sunshine, a place where her dream would finally take flight. Though she'd never traveled so far from home, she felt oddly prepared, as if she'd been waiting her whole life for this journey. The ticket she booked was economy class, bare bones. The flight was with a reputable airline, Delta Airlines, departing from JFK early on a bright Saturday morning. Ebony hadn't expected anything luxurious. All she wanted was to get there in one piece, do her best, and pray the judges would see in her what others in her neighborhood had always seen: a superstar in the making. Little did she know, an unforeseen encounter at the check-in counter would hurl a vicious storm her way. This storm would test every bit of grit and grace Ebony possessed. It would also open doors that on the surface seemed locked tight. That night before her trip, Ebony lay awake with the kind of nervous excitement that only the night before a big dream can bring. She replayed images in her mind of her father hugging her at the airport, her mother praying over her, and her father's last words before bed. "Make us proud, Ebony. Show them what you're made of." Without yet knowing it, Ebony was about to experience both heartbreak and triumph. The world she was stepping into had sharp edges, but Ebony possessed an indomitable spirit that refused to shatter. She was climbing a ladder built of hope's prayers and unshakable self-belief, and each rung brought her closer to the top. Morning came with a jolt of adrenaline, and as Ebony pulled on her navy blue blazer, she paused to gaze in the mirror. She saw not just a young woman heading to an audition, but a force of nature on the brink of transformation. She squared her shoulders and whispered, "Let's do this." The morning sun painted JFK's glass windows with streaks of gold. Ebony felt a mix of excitement and nausea as she entered the bustling terminal. It seemed like an entire city moved within those halls, families lugging suitcases, business travelers on urgent phone calls, couples hugging goodbye. She navigated the throng with wide eyes until she found the Delta check-in area, her heart thumping as though it had learned a new, faster tempo. Approaching the line, Ebony carefully smoothed the front of her blazer and adjusted her carry-on bag. She was determined to look polished and confident, just in case any scouts happened to be passing by. Besides, she was a new traveler and wanted to avoid any mishaps that might cost her precious time. When it was her turn, she stepped up to the counter with a polite smile. The agent behind the desk wore a name tag that read Marjorie. Her blonde hair was pinned into a tight bun, and her lips pressed into a thin line as though smiling was a chore. Ebony handed over her identification and e-ticket confirmation with trembling fingers. Marjorie eyed Ebony up and down, taking in the blazer, the large hoop earrings, the flawless complexion. Traveling today, she asked, her tone devoid of warmth. "Yes," Ebony replied, summoning her politest voice. "I'm flying to Los Angeles economy class." There was a brief silence as Marjorie typed away. Ebony felt a spike of relief when she noticed the agent's expression soften. Maybe this would be an easy check-in after all. Then, as Marjorie clicked through the reservation details, her features hardened again. "You'll be checking any bags?" she asked, her tone dripping with disinterest. "No, just carry on." Ebony held up the small suitcase that barely met the carry-on standards. "Right," Marjorie said. Then her gaze flicked over Ebony's head, as if scanning for something or someone else. "And you're sure you're in economy?" Ebony blinked in confusion. "Yes, that's correct." Marjorie gave a stiff nod. "I assumed so," though subtle Ebony caught the condescension in her voice. She decided not to take it personally. Maybe the agent was just having a bad day. "Okay, so am I good to go?" she asked, offering a half smile that wasn't returned. Marjorie rechecked the ticket. "Just stand aside a moment." She flagged down another employee. Something about the gesture made Ebony's stomach clench. Was there an issue with her ticket? Had Ebony done something wrong? Another agent, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, came over. They whispered back and forth, occasionally glancing at Ebony. She tried to steady her breath. At last, Marjorie turned back, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Everything is fine with your booking," she said, with a hint of exasperation. "However, we'd like to confirm you're aware of the cost of upgrading. You'd have to pay extra if you want to change to first class or business." Ebony's heart fluttered with embarrassment. She wasn't sure if they thought she was loitering in the wrong line or if her looks suggested she couldn't afford a higher class, but the question made heat rise to her cheeks. "I'm definitely staying in economy," Ebony replied, her voice firm, yet polite. Marjorie pursed her lips. "Okay, it's just that sometimes passengers come here assuming they're in first class." She handed Ebony's ID back. "Thank you for clarifying. Enjoy your flight. Economy boarding is at gate B32. Ebony nodded, pressing her lips together to hold in a retort. She wanted to say something about the insinuation that she shouldn't belong anywhere else but economy, but she had a plane to catch, and drama at the check-in counter was the last thing she needed. She gathered her documents, turned on her heel, and walked away with as much dignity as possible. Just as Ebony left, she heard Marjorie mutter to the other agent, "They always think they can just waltz into first class, don't they?" Ebony froze. Anger flared in her chest so fierce that it stole her breath. For a moment, she considered turning back and confronting the woman. Instead, she inhaled deeply and told herself, "You have bigger fish to fry." She had an audition to focus on. She would not let a narrow-minded comment derail her destiny. With her head held high, Ebony trekked through the terminal, found her gate, and settled into a seat to wait for boarding. But the insult echoed in her mind, and she realized it wasn't just about the seat assignment. It was about the assumption that a black girl in an expensive blazer must be stepping out of her place if she dared to expect anything but the cheapest experience. Still, Ebony felt a small wave of triumph in her chest as she thought, "One day you'll see me in first class, no, on a private jet, and you'll wonder how you ever questioned my worth." Little did she know, that day would arrive far sooner and in a far grander way than she or anyone else could have imagined. The flight to Los Angeles was uneventful for the first few hours. Ebony settled into her cramped economy seat, earphones blasting a motivational playlist she'd created especially for the trip. She took out a dog-eared notepad where she'd jotted down her catwalk routine interview tips and a list of potential outfits, though she only owned so many pieces. Between excited visions of LA palm trees and flickers of anxiety about her upcoming audition, Ebony tried to relax. During a short break from her music, she overheard a commotion toward the front of economy class. Curious, she peeked up the aisle. A flight attendant seemed to be engaged in a frantic conversation with a passenger who looked pale and uncomfortable. Another attendant rushed over. Ebony caught snippets of, "We need a doctor, and he's having trouble breathing." Alarm rippled through the cabin. Moments later, an announcement came over the intercom. "If there's a medical professional on board, please notify the flight crew immediately." Ebony's heart pounded. She wasn't a doctor, but she recalled her mother's training as a nurse. Sometimes Ebony accompanied her mother to volunteer at free health clinics, picking up bits of emergency knowledge. She considered stepping forward just in case. But before she could unbuckle her seatbelt, another passenger, a woman in business class, rose and hastened to the distressed passenger's side. As Ebony watched from afar, she noticed a tall, broad-shouldered man, also straining to see what was happening. He wore a well-fitted suit and had an air of quiet confidence. Something about him felt important. Maybe it was his polished shoes or the dignified way he held himself. Most passengers had settled back, but this man moved with a sense of purpose. He looked around as if assessing whether someone else might need assistance or reassurance. Eventually, the medical situation seemed to stabilize. The flight attendant thanked the volunteer, who stepped in. The tension in the cabin eased, and Ebony exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. As the crowd of onlookers dissipated, Ebony locked eyes with the broad-shouldered man for a split second. He offered a polite smile, and she smiled back, giving a small nod. Then, he turned away, heading back toward his seat, in what Ebony assumed was business class. When the plane finally touched down at LAX, Ebony marveled at the palm trees swaying in the distance through the oval window. She had made it. She wriggled out of the cramped seat, grabbed her carry-on, and joined the slow-moving line of passengers eager to deplane. Stepping into the aisle, Ebony felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see the same man from earlier, impeccably dressed, exuding a calm, professional aura. "Excuse me," he said, his voice tinged with curiosity. "I couldn't help but notice your notebook. You seem like you're planning something big." Ebony's cheeks warmed. She clutched the notepad protectively. "Oh, it's just notes for an audition. I'm here for a modeling competition." His eyes lit up with interest. "That's impressive. I'm sure you'll do great. You have a presence. I noticed it even from a few rows up." Ebony was taken aback by the compliment. She mustered a shy grin. "Thank you, I appreciate that." The line shuffled forward, and they continued inching toward the aircraft's exit. "I'm Malcolm Wright," he said, extending a hand. "I work in the aviation industry, more on the corporate side." Ebony shook his hand, noting the firm, respectful grip. "Ebony James, nice to meet you, and thanks for your kind words. Really, it means a lot." They exchanged small talk about the weather, Los Angeles traffic, and Ebony's first trip to the West Coast. Malcolm discovered Ebony was traveling solo for a high-stakes audition, and Ebony learned that Malcolm oversaw corporate accounts for a private jet charter company. "I'm actually in town for a negotiation," he said. "We're trying to expand our business model to include more private flights for celebrities and major events." Ebony listened with fascination. The world of private jets felt like a universe away from her cramped apartment in Brooklyn. They parted ways in the terminal, but not before Malcolm handed her a business card. "In case you ever need anything advice on travel, or if things don't go as planned, and you need help getting home." Ebony smiled at the gesture. "Thank you, Mr. Wright. That's incredibly generous." He returned a friendly grin, slipping into a confident stride. "Call me Malcolm," he said over his shoulder, "and good luck. I have a feeling we'll cross paths again." As Ebony navigated the chaotic baggage claim area, though she had no checked bag, she needed to exit through the labyrinth. She felt a buzz of optimism, not just because she'd met someone who appeared well-connected, but because the city already held a certain magic. If this is how it starts, who knows what might happen next, she thought. She caught a shuttle to the motel she'd booked online. It was a modest place in Inglewood, chosen for its affordability and proximity to the competition venue. The neon sign out front buzzed, and the lobby smelled vaguely of bleach and cigarettes. But Ebony wasn't complaining. She was in Los Angeles, about to chase her dream, and nothing could dampen her excitement. Settling into her small, tidy room, Ebony spread out her clothes and audition materials on the bed. Tomorrow was the first round of tryouts for the modeling competition. Exhausted from the flight and the emotional roller coaster of the day, she sank onto the bed, phone in hand, and texted her mother, "Made it to LA, safe and sound. Audition tomorrow. Love you." She received an immediate response, brimming with heart emojis and prayers for good luck. Ebony drifted off to sleep, dreaming of bright lights, cameras, and the possibility that she was on the brink of something extraordinary. In the morning, the real test would begin. And though she didn't realize it then, the seeds planted during her brief encounter on the airplane were about to grow into an opportunity she never saw coming. The next morning, Ebony's alarm blared at 6 a.m. She jumped out of bed with jittery anticipation. The auditions for the modeling competition were scheduled to start at 8 a.m. at a sleek event space downtown. Ebony donned her carefully chosen outfit, black leggings paired with a crisp white blouse and heeled boots. She'd spent weeks preparing poses, walks, and lines for the inevitable on-camera introduction. Arriving at the venue, Ebony's nerves skyrocketed. A line of other hopefuls snaked around the block, tall, short, curvy, slim, all decked out in a rainbow of stylish ensembles. Some chatted anxiously with friends or family, while others stood alone practicing model walks in the reflective windows. Inside the space was immaculate white marble floors, large mirrors, and bright overhead lights. At the far end, a table manned by a team of judges and casting directors formed a barrier between aspiration and rejection. Among them were fashion industry insiders, a famous photographer, and a representative from a top modeling agency. Ebony scanned their faces, butterflies in her stomach. One misstep could ruin everything. Contestants stepped forward one at a time. When called, boomed a staff member. "You'll have 2 minutes to introduce yourselves and do a short runway walk. The judges may ask questions." Ebony took a deep breath, drawing on every ounce of poise she'd cultivated over the years. When her name was called, she stepped onto the makeshift runway with an air of practiced confidence. The bright lights hit her, and for a split second, she froze, but then her training kicked in. Shoulders back, chin up, eyes forward. She glided across the floor, each step a message, "I belong here." At the end of her walk, Ebony turned locked eyes with the judges and delivered her polished self-introduction: name, age, hometown, and reason for wanting to be a model. She spoke about her aspiration to represent diversity in an industry that sorely needed it. She mentioned how she hoped to empower young black girls who rarely saw themselves on covers or catwalks. Her voice trembled slightly, but her resolve shone through. The judges asked a few follow-up questions, mostly about her experience, of which she had little, and her willingness to handle the pressures of the fashion world. Ebony answered honestly, acknowledging her inexperience, but emphasizing her work ethic. She felt a surge of relief when she saw a couple of the judges nodding in approval. "Thank you, Ms. James," said a willowy casting director with silver hair. "We'll post the list of callbacks in the lobby in 2 hours." Ebony nodded, thanked them, and exited the runway area, her heart pounding like she'd just sprinted a marathon. She stumbled into a nearby lounge, collapsed onto a plastic chair, and texted her father, "Audition done. Waiting for results." Time seemed to crawl. She tried to distract herself by chatting with another contestant, a friendly Latina named Marisol, who also felt like an outsider in the glossy world of high fashion. They swapped encouraging words, exchanging their anxieties and excitement. Finally, the staff pinned a sheet of paper to a bulletin board in the lobby. The crowd surged forward, jockeying for space to see the list. Ebony squeezed through eyes, scanning the names, adrenaline coursing. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw Ebony James typed neatly in the middle. She had made the first cut. Elation flooded her. She clapped a hand over her mouth, suppressing a joyful squeal, but euphoria soon gave way to apprehension. The competition would only intensify from here. Still, Ebony was one step closer to her dream. She found Marisol, who'd also advanced, and they celebrated in the hallway with a mutual hug. The second round followed in the afternoon. This time, the judges tested Ebony's ability to follow direction under pressure. They had her change into a provided outfit, an edgy, deconstructed denim set, and walk to a mix of rock and hip-hop beats. Cameras flashed, and Ebony felt her nerves return. At one point, a judge corrected her posture in front of everyone, making her feel momentarily small. Yet she swallowed her pride, adjusted her stance, and pressed on. By early evening, Ebony collapsed onto a lobby bench, exhausted but resolute. The day had been a whirlwind of posing, strutting, and answering rapid-fire questions. Another cut was posted, and Ebony's name remained. Relief mixed with disbelief. She was told to return the next day for the final round, after which only a handful of winners would be chosen to walk in the competition's main event, a live showcase before industry heavyweights. That night, Ebony trudged back to her motel, feet aching, mind spinning. She was proud of making it this far, but anxieties gnawed at her. Could she really compete with these industry veterans? Would the judges see her as too raw, too unrefined? She thought about how far she would come from the cramped Brooklyn apartment to the set of a high-profile audition in Los Angeles. If she'd made it this far, maybe she truly had something special to offer. Holding on to that thought, Ebony soaked her sore feet in the motel's ancient bathtub, mentally rehearsing for tomorrow's final challenge. Before she finally slipped into a restless sleep, Ebony's phone buzzed with a message. She expected it to be her mother or father, or perhaps Marisol, but the screen displayed Malcolm Wright. Intrigued, she opened it. "Good luck with your audition," he'd written. "LA is a city of big dreams. Hope yours come true." A simple text, but it felt like a beacon of support in unfamiliar territory. Ebony quickly typed back a thank you, adding a smiley face for good measure. With that, she flicked off the lamp and let the darkness lull her. Tomorrow could bring triumph or heartbreak, but Ebony was ready to face it head-on. Morning arrived, painting the Los Angeles skyline in pastel hues. Ebony hurried back downtown, adrenaline pumping. The final day of the audition was being filmed for a television pilot, an inside look at how the competition's winners were chosen. Cameramen roamed the venue, capturing every wave of nerves and flicker of confidence on the contestants' faces. Today's structure was far more intense. Each contestant would perform a final runway walk and pose for a rapid-fire photo session before a live audience comprising industry insiders and local influencers. At the end, the judges would announce who made the top spots, awarding them the chance to walk in a major show. Backstage, Ebony felt an undercurrent of tension among the contestants. A few gave each other supportive smiles, but others eyed their rivals as if they were about to enter a battlefield. Ebony tried to focus on her own performance, recalling her mother's words. "You are your only competition." A stylist motioned Ebony over to a rack of designer gowns. She was assigned a shimmering gold dress with a thigh-high slit and dramatic shoulder accents. The fabric hugged her curves, highlighting her statuesque frame. Her makeup was bold, glittering eyeshadow that caught the light, deep red lipstick that accentuated her full lips. Staring at her reflection, Ebony barely recognized the girl from Brooklyn. She felt powerful, regal. When Ebony's turn came, she stepped onto the runway beneath blinding stage lights. The audience's murmurs died down. A pulsating electronic beat filled the air. She remembered to take long, confident strides, each foot crossing slightly in front of the other. Her arms swayed gracefully, posture tall. Cameras clicked, capturing every angle. She reached the end of the runway, paused, and struck a fierce pose that demanded attention. In that moment, Ebony thought about everyone who had told her to stay in her lane or know her place. She thought about Marjorie at the airport, who assumed Ebony couldn't possibly belong in a better seat than economy. With a surge of defiance, she tilted her chin upward and let the camera flashes wash over her. I am here, she thought, and I'm not leaving. The applause that followed felt like a wave of warmth. Ebony glided backstage, chest heaving with exhilaration. Immediately, she was ushered into a small photo booth where a famous photographer barked directions. Chin down, eyes up, fierce softer, show me, vulnerability. The strobe lights flashed in rapid succession. Ebony gave it her all, fueled by a potent mix of adrenaline and pride. At last, she was directed to a waiting area with the other contestants who had completed their final tasks. Everyone wore expressions of relief and dread. The final winners would be announced shortly. Ebony saw Marisol in the corner, anxiously tapping her foot. She caught her eye and offered a reassuring smile. Marisol attempted to return it, but her lips trembled. Back in the main hall, the head judge took the microphone. He was a well-known fashion mogul, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, every inch the image of authority. The audience quieted. A hush fell over the contestants. We've seen some incredible talent over these 2 days, he began. And choosing finalists was no small task. However, this is a high-stakes competition. In an industry that thrives on excellence, we can only move forward with those who exhibit both potential and professionalism. One by one, he announced names, each followed by applause. Marisol's name was called third. She squealed, hands flying to her face, tears brimming. Ebony's heart soared for her friend. But with each name announced that wasn't hers, Ebony felt a tightening in her chest. Finally, the judge paused dramatically. Our final contestant to enter the top winner's circle, Ebony James. The world seemed to freeze. Ebony felt her pulse slam in her ears. Then a surge of relief and wonder coursed through her veins. She stepped forward, blinking back tears as the audience erupted in cheers. Marisol hugged her so tightly they almost toppled over. Cameras zoomed in to capture Ebony's reaction, the tears, the trembling smile, the raw joy. She had done it. She was officially one of the winners, set to walk in the upcoming fashion show. The casting directors congratulated her, offering professional courtesy and promises of bigger opportunities ahead. Ebony couldn't stop smiling. All her scrimping saving and sleepless nights had led her to this triumphant moment. Amid the chaos of photographers and well-wishers, Ebony felt her phone buzz in her purse. She pulled it out and saw Malcolm Wright's name on the screen again. This time the message read, "I heard congratulations are in order. How about a celebratory dinner?" Ebony stared at the text, her mind spinning. How did he even know so quickly? She had barely left the stage. But then she realized the event was being broadcast on social media with highlight reels streaming in real time. Perhaps Malcolm followed the industry news closely, or maybe he simply had an inside source. Either way, Ebony didn't have the mental space to figure it out at that moment. She typed a quick reply. "Thank you. That sounds nice. Let me know the details." As Ebony left the venue with Marisol, she fought back tears of gratitude, texting her parents the news of her victory. Tomorrow she'd have to focus on rehearsals and press appearances, but for tonight she allowed herself a moment to bask in the glow of success. She was living proof that with grit, grace, and unwavering belief in oneself, even the most improbable dreams could be grasped. And if Ebony had anything to say about it, this was only the beginning. The next evening, Ebony found herself stepping out of a taxi in front of a chic rooftop lounge in downtown Los Angeles. A wave of nerves cascaded over her, not the same kind of nerves she felt on the runway, but a different sort altogether. She was about to have dinner with Malcolm Wright, a man she barely knew yet, who seemed incredibly interested in her aspirations. Dressed in a sleek little black dress and low heels, Ebony made her way past the velvet rope and into an elevator that whisked her to the top floor. Ambient lighting illuminated a sprawling view of LA city lights, and the evening breeze carried the faint scent of citrus and jasmine. Her eyes swept the crowd, searching for Malcolm. He stood near the edge of the rooftop, hands in his pockets, gazing at the glittering skyline. Spotting Ebony, he flashed a welcoming smile and signaled her over. Tonight, he wore a casual blazer with jeans, a confident ease replacing the formal stiffness of his business attire on the plane. Ebony Malcolm greeted, leaning in for a friendly hug. "Congratulations, I heard you nailed that audition." "Thank you," Ebony replied, her voice betraying a hint of shyness. "I'm still in shock, honestly." Malcolm guided her to a reserved table with a panoramic view. A waiter appeared, offering water and a wine list. Ebony declined the wine. She wanted to stay sharp. Once the waiter left, Malcolm turned his full attention to her. So he began, "What's the next step now that you've secured a spot in this fashion show?" Ebony took a moment to compose her thoughts. "Rehearsals, fittings, promotions. I've never been part of something this big, so I'm ready to absorb everything like a sponge." Malcolm nodded. "I don't doubt that for a second. You strike me as someone who works hard for what she wants." Ebony smiled appreciatively. "Well, I had to fight to get this far. Not everyone believes in you just because you want something badly." Malcolm's expression turned serious. "I get that. If it's not too personal, mind telling me a bit about your background? I want to understand what's fueling your determination." Ebony explained her childhood in Brooklyn, the late nights her mother worked, and how her father sold his prized vinyls to help fund her trip. She described her modest life, the dreams she harbored, and the slights she'd already encountered in the industry. She included a brief mention of the encounter with Marjorie at the airport, describing how it left her feeling both indignant and resolute. A thoughtful pause hung between them. Finally, Malcolm said, "That story about the airport agent makes my blood boil. Unfortunately, it's all too common. People underestimate someone based on their appearance, never realizing who they're talking to." Ebony shrugged her lips, pressing into a thin line. "I guess it is what it is, but I'm determined to prove them wrong." A moment of quiet understanding passed. Then Malcolm leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. "You will. Actually, I might have a proposition for you." Ebony tilted her head. Curiosity piqued. "A proposition?" He nodded. "I mentioned I'm in the private aviation business, right? Specifically, I oversee a charter service that provides private jets for celebrities, politicians, high-profile businessmen, you name it. We've been working on a new marketing campaign aimed at diversifying our client base, especially in entertainment. It occurred to me, what if we showcased a model who resonates with ambition, resilience, and that star quality people can't ignore? Ebony blinked her heart, skipping. "You mean, are you offering me a modeling gig with your company?" Malcolm's lips curved into a smile. "Precisely. I can't guarantee the entire campaign is yours, but I can put you in touch with our marketing team. They'll make the final call. But from what I've seen, both from your performance and the way you carry yourself, you'd be a top contender." Ebony's head spun. This was more than she ever anticipated. I don't know what to say. That would be an incredible opportunity." "Say yes," Malcolm replied, chuckling. "At least to meeting with our team. If it feels right, we move forward." Adrenaline surged through Ebony. She was barely 24 hours out from her big win, and here she was, discussing a potential private jet campaign. The synergy seemed unreal. Then a flicker of doubt crept in. "I'm still new to this world. Why me? Why now?" Malcolm's gaze held hers steadily. Because I believe in catching rising stars early. You're determined, you're talented, and if I'm being honest, your story is compelling. That's exactly the kind of narrative marketing teams love. Authentic, hardworking, and fresh. Ebony exhaled slowly, a swirl of excitement and gratitude filling her. She looked out at the city lights, remembering the little girl who once pretended her hairbrush was a microphone. Now, she was living a story that felt like an impossible fairy tale. Yes, she said, turning back to him with a radiant smile. I'd love to meet your team. Malcolm's face lit up. They chatted details about scheduling, about Ebony's upcoming fashion show commitments, and the potential logistics of a jet-themed photo shoot. Each sentence seemed to bring Ebony closer to a realm of luxury she'd only glimpsed on television. She felt a buzz of promise in the air, as though the city itself was whispering, "Keep going. This is your time." Eventually, their conversations steered into lighter territory. They discussed favorite music genres. Malcolm liked old-school R&B, while Ebony was a fan of neo-soul. She discovered he was originally from Atlanta, had a younger sister he adored, and had worked his way up from an entry-level marketing job at the private jet firm. It was a reminder that both of them had hustled to be where they were. By the evening's end, Ebony's cheeks hurt from smiling. As Malcolm walked her to the elevator, he said quietly, "I have a really good feeling about this. About you." Ebony felt a warmth in her chest that wasn't purely professional. "Me too," she whispered, stepping into the elevator, heart pounding with renewed hope. She exited the building and found her taxi. As she slid into the seat, Ebony stared at the business card Malcolm had given her, a small rectangle of possibility. She was reminded of how quickly life could change, from being disrespected by an airline agent to being courted by a private aviation company. 1 week ago, she was scraping together change for a plane ticket. Now, she might soon be the face of a luxury fleet. In her motel room that night, Ebony stayed awake, replaying every moment of dinner in her head. She felt like she was riding a wave that could either carry her to unimaginable heights or crash spectacularly. Whatever happened next, Ebony vowed to remain grounded, to remember her roots, her family, and the community that believed in her long before she believed in herself. The following week passed in a blur of rehearsals for the fashion show, late-night photo shoots, and multiple meetings with Malcolm's marketing team. Ebony found herself juggling schedules and pushing her limits, exhausted yet exhilarated. She never imagined her biggest problem would be finding time to sleep. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, Ebony's phone buzzed as she was leaving a costume fitting. It was her mother. She answered quickly, eager to share the day's triumphs. "Baby," her mother's voice trembled through the receiver. "We just saw something about you on social media." "Is it true?" Ebony's heart pounded. "Is what true? What are you talking about, Mum?" Her mother hesitated. "There's a post going around claiming you got disqualified from the competition for unethical behavior. People are saying you bribed the judges, that you lied about your background." A cold wave of shock passed over Ebony. "What? That's ridiculous. None of that is true." Her mother breathed a shaky sigh of relief. "I knew it couldn't be. I just had to hear it from you." Ebony ended the call with a promise to sort out the rumors. She immediately logged onto her social media to find a flurry of messages from concerned friends, fellow contestants, and even fans she didn't know she had. A malicious rumor had begun circulating that Ebony had been secretly funded by an unnamed benefactor who paid off the judges. Some posts suggested Ebony wasn't really from a modest background at all, alleging she was a trust fund baby, posing as an underdog for sympathy points. Outraged Ebony tried to trace the source of the slander, but found only reposts and screenshots of an anonymous original post. She suspected it might be the work of a jealous competitor, someone threatened by her meteoric rise. Panicked Ebony rushed to the competition headquarters. She managed to corner one of the casting directors in the hallway, breathless with anxiety. "You've seen the rumors, right? None of it is true, I swear." The casting director nodded sympathetically. "We know Ebony, trust me. We've had plenty of participants targeted by online trolls. We're investigating the source, but it doesn't affect your standing with us. You're still in the show." Relief flooded Ebony's system. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling. I don't know what to do." "Focus on your work," the director advised, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "The truth has a way of coming out. Don't let them sabotage your momentum." Feeling marginally better, Ebony left the building only to be approached by a local gossip blogger lurking by the entrance. A camera phone pointed at her, the lens capturing her unsettled expression. "Ebony James, care to comment on the allegations that you bought your way into the finals?" the blogger shouted. Ebony's stiffened face burning with anger and humiliation. She debated responding, but something told her silence might be more prudent. She ducked into a waiting rideshare car, ignoring the blogger's taunts. That night, Ebony vented her frustrations to Malcolm over dinner at a cozy Italian bistro. He listened intently, brow furrowed. "This is exactly why I hate social media sometimes," he grumbled. "It can spread nonsense like wildfire." Ebony sipped her water, struggling to keep her composure. "I feel helpless. I'm just starting out, and already I'm being slandered." Malcolm reached across the table, his hand briefly covering hers. "Don't worry about the rumors, Ebony. People can talk, but it won't stop your talent from shining. And if it's any consolation, the marketing team is still thrilled about you. We're finalizing the campaign shoot next week." Ebony's eyes lit up at the mention of the private jet shoot. "Are you serious already?" He grinned, nodding. "I told you when we see what we like, we move fast." Then his tone turned playful. "Besides, imagine the message it sends, Ebony James, unstoppable rising star, ignoring the haters while she flies high on a private jet." Despite the stress of the slanderous rumors, Ebony felt a rush of excitement at the idea. The campaign might become a powerful statement that she wasn't going anywhere, she was leveling up. Yet behind her triumphant anticipation, a sliver of doubt lingered. Whoever started these rumors could still create havoc for her budding career. Could they target the private jet shoot next? Could they sabotage her standing in the eyes of the fashion community? She shook off those thoughts, deciding to focus on the positivity. The next day, Ebony posted a firm, yet respectful statement on her social media, denying the allegations and emphasizing the real journey she'd endured to get this far. She received an outpouring of support from her fans, family, and friends, and it helped bolster her spirit. If trolls wanted a fight, Ebony resolved to fight them with grace and authenticity. And so the drama simmered, overshadowed by her unstoppable forward momentum. The date for her private jet photo shoot was set, and Ebony found herself daydreaming about stepping onto a tarmac under the California sun, camera lenses capturing her every move against a background of sleek aircraft. She imagined the final advertisements plastered across billboards, her face linked inextricably with success. She could practically see the headline, "From economy class to jet-setter Ebony James defies the odds." If only she could see how literal that headline would become, and how sweet the taste of poetic justice would be when she next crossed paths with the one person who insisted she belonged nowhere but economy. The morning of the private jet photo shoot unfolded under a flawless California sky. Ebony arrived at a sleek airstrip on the outskirts of Los Angeles, where a line of Wright Air's finest aircraft gleamed like silver arrows. Among them was the centerpiece jet, the one that would carry Ebony's image across the sky and internet alike. She was met by a bustling team, a tattooed creative director with a booming voice, a cheerful makeup artist, and a top-tier fashion photographer. The campaign titled Rising Above was more than a marketing theme. It was Ebony's life distilled into 2 words. The photo shoot began on the tarmac. Ebony moved with effortless grace, transitioning between a commanding white pantsuit, a regal turquoise gown, and edgy streetwear that echoed her Brooklyn roots. The camera clicked constantly as she strutted along the jet steps, leaned casually against the fuselage, and gazed into the horizon with a quiet fire in her eyes. "She's gold," the creative director whispered to the photographer. "She doesn't just model clothes, she tells a story." Inside the jet, the luxury stunned Ebony. Leather seats, polished wood accents, gold trim worlds, away from the cramped economy seat she had once occupied. She reclined into a plush seat, feigning a champagne toast. Each snap of the shutter was a reclamation of dignity, proof she had transcended everything that tried to box her in. As the shoot wrapped, Malcolm stepped aboard the jet, his smile wide. "You've killed it today," he said. "But we're not done. There's a surprise." Ebony tilted her head, intrigued. "What kind of surprise?" Malcolm gestured for her to follow. They stepped outside, where the team had gathered in front of a neighboring hangar. A canvas cover was stretched across the tail of a larger jet. With a signal from Malcolm, 2 staffers tugged the cover down. The reveal hit like thunder. Ebony's face, fierce, confident, radiant, was emblazoned across the jet's tail, larger than life. Beside it, in bold silver letters, "Rise Above with Wright Air." For a long second, Ebony couldn't speak. Her hands flew to her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. "This is real," she finally whispered. Malcolm placed a gentle hand on her back. "You earned this." Applause broke out from the crew. Phones lifted for photos. The moment went live on Wright Air's social media. Ebony stood center stage, stunned and grateful, the image of victory. But destiny hadn't finished weaving its tapestry of poetic justice. From behind, a voice called out sharply, "Excuse me, where's the main office for Wright Air Charters? I have an appointment." Ebony turned toward the sound and froze. Marjorie, the same Delta Gate agent from JFK, her tidy bun was still intact, though her clothes looked wrinkled and her expression was taut with stress. She held a manila folder and moved briskly, scanning the area for someone to help. A staffer pointed her toward the admin building. "Mr. Wright should be inside." As Marjorie turned, her eyes locked with Ebony's. Recognition hit instantly. Her face drained of color. For a moment, she just stared. Then her gaze shifted to the jet with Ebony's face on it. Ebony remained still, heart pounding, but face composed. She had dreamed of a day like this, but never imagined the symmetry would be this precise. She stepped forward. "Marjorie from JFK, right?" Marjorie blinked rapidly, trying to regain control. "Yes." "Hello? I heard you say you're here for an interview." "Yes. Delta's made some changes. I'm applying for a client liaison role here." She forced a smile. "Congratulations. On everything." Ebony studied her. The woman who once questioned if she even belonged in a check-in line now stood beneath her face, seeking a job. "Thank you," Ebony said simply. "Best of luck with your interview." Marjorie stiffened. "I appreciate that." Just then, a staff member appeared to escort Marjorie inside. As she left, her eyes lingered once more on the jet, then flicked away as though it burned to look directly at it. Malcolm joined Ebony, having witnessed the exchange. "That's the one," Ebony nodded. "She told me at JFK that people like me shouldn't expect first class." Malcolm exhaled slowly. "And now she's walking under a jet with your face on it." "I don't need revenge," Ebony said. This is better." A smile curved Malcolm's lips. "Feel like taking her for a spin." Ebony blinked. "The jet, why not? A quick flight around the city. Good for the campaign, great for your soul." Within 30 minutes, Ebony was buckled into a wide leather seat, the engines rumbling beneath her. The jet lifted effortlessly, soaring over the LA skyline. From her window, she watched the city sprawl beneath her palm trees, freeways, rooftop pools, the Pacific Ocean sparkling like glass. She closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the hairbrush microphone from her childhood, her father pawning his jazz records, the sting of being told she didn't belong. She was flying now, not just in a plane, but in her purpose. The jet circled the city before descending smoothly back onto the runway. As the wheels touched down, the crew greeted her with applause and a commemorative plaque, her name, the slogan, and the date of her debut. The sun dipped low, casting pink streaks across the sky. Ebony stepped aside from the crew to take one final photo of the jet, her jet. She messaged her parents, "You won't believe it. My face is on a jet. We made it. Love you forever." As she pressed send, a breeze swept across the tarmac. The sky above seemed vast and open, and for the first time in her life, Ebony James truly felt she had risen above it all. So there you have it, Ebony James's incredible transformation from overlooked dreamer to the face on a private jet fleet. Her journey reminds us that determination, self-belief, and staying true to who you are can open doors you never even knew existed. When life pushes you down, whether it's a rude comment at the airport or 1,000 naysayers telling you no, you push back by staying focused on the bigger picture. Ebony's story is living proof the universe has a way of rewarding those who refuse to give up. If you found inspiration, excitement, or just plain entertainment in Ebony's journey, be sure to hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs a boost of motivation, and subscribe to our channel for more uplifting tales of resilience and triumph. Your support helps us keep these stories coming. So thank you for being part of the journey.